Once upon a time, a podcaster named Glenn, that's me, recorded a conversation with another podcaster named Mike. You'll hear him in just a moment. To talk about this thing called the Gene Keys that was written by a guy named Richard Rudd. You'll hear some clips from him too. And it all got published on a podcast called Infants on Thrones and another podcast called Mormons on Mushrooms. And dozens of people heard it. Some of them even liked it. And maybe one of those is you. And maybe not. But anyway, yeah.
What I love about that is, sometimes you go through these phases where all you can do is just go on instinct. You feel that impulse. There's something emerging from within you, and you can't judge it by what you're seeing around you. You're still in the mud. You can't, and your mind's going to try to predict so many things, but all those, it doesn't even know the possibility of flight yet. So how can it even predict the future, because it's so limited in what it can see? You're in the midst of darkness. You're crawling through. It feels like an itch that I just can't scratch. It's just like a gnawing. And it's just like a crawling, like ants, but like a gnawing kind of sensation. And for whatever reason, I associated that with unworthiness. To the point where my mission president he was just getting sick of me, because I would come in and I would confess every little thing. I would go back through my history and be like, well, what about this? Well, this, and then I'd feel good. Sometimes I would relieve it a little bit, like just having someone tell me you're okay. But then I'd be like, but did I confess that fully? And then I would go, and then next time we were in interviews, I would like, okay, that thing I talked about last time? But it wants to be expressed. It wants to be moved. It wants to be, you're still trying to fix the wounding, but it's not wounding. Blank slate, don't need to figure it out. There's a dragonfly in me that knows how to like just smell it out and navigate it and trust it.
This is Infants on Thrones.
Baby steps.
You want someone to preach to?
The philosophies of men.
I like magical toys.
You want religion, do you?
Mingled with humor.
I don't believe in them.
There will be many willing to preach to you the philosophies of men mingled with humor.
We are evolving.
Baby steps.
You can buy anything in this world of money.
Look for the good in everything. Look for the people who will set your soul free. It always seems impossible until it's done. Look for the good in everyone.
What is up?
Mike Steed.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good to see your face.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. It's been years.
It has, hasn't it? It's been like, what, maybe 3 years since we did our last
Probably.
episode?
Yeah, I think 3 years.
Well, that's way too long. That's 3 years too long.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I've been listening to your voice a lot, though, lately.
yeah, I listened to yours the other day too. So I was thinking we could just record our conversation here and just like cross-publish it on our podcasts.
I would love
You
to.
want to do that?
Let's do it.
Cool. Am I recording now? I think I am.
Yeah, when I joined,
I'm
it
not
said
gonna-
it was recording.
Yeah, not going to use any of this stuff, but
Use
Well,
whatever
let
you
me-
want.
well,
You have my consent. I consent.
real okay, but I want to hear it like before we start like doing this for earnest. I want to do
Yeah.
like a little catch up, and so there might be some things that you don't want put out there. I don't know.
That's true. I'll let you know. I'll let you know afterwards if I don't want any of it. But
Okay.
yeah.
So first, start with your separation.
Yeah, so it's been 2 years. It's been like yeah, it's been hard. We were together for about 20 for 20. We were married for 20 years.
You guys met at BYU?
Utah State.
Utah State.
Aggies. Yeah.
Okay.
That's where I met Doug too. So we all
Yeah.
met at Utah State. Um And it was one of those things where I think w- we tried giving our space. So we had like an open-ish marriage for like the last 2 years
Mm.
of our marriage. We tried to give her, it's like we kind of went through different phases of our marriage. We had like our Mormon phase and then kind of like our questioning Mormon phase where we moved out of California and then we left the church kind of together, pretty close. She left a little bit before me, but we were both in that like questioning phase, and then more of an exploratory phase, kind of, and then I think there's just a feeling of like trying to discover ourselves for the first time. Who am I outside of Mormonism? Who am I, and who is she? And we tried to give each other space to do that while still being married, but I don't think it was enough space. I think it
Mm.
was just, like I need space to make mistakes if I need to, like, and not have
Mm.
to report back to anyone and someone questioning my, mistakes and just kind of own my own mistakes. I think it was, too. So it's been a really hard 2 years, but it's been good in a lot of ways, but like a lot of, I've never felt, I don't think I've ever had a broken heart before, you
Ah,
know?
yeah.
Um, and I have loved, I've never been alone and I've kind of loved that too. I've never had the like nights alone. Like right now we switch off. Like we have an apartment. Kids stay here at home, so we have the house and an apartment and
Right.
we switch
Did
off
like
every
the
week.
nesting thing.
Yeah, the nesting. And that
Yeah.
works well for us. I mean, especially here in LA, we don't have to afford like two homes that are big enough for our kids. And you
So,
kind of get experience, okay, when I'm here with the kids, like I'm here with kids this week.
yeah.
I'm more in dad mode. And then when I go into the apartment, I'm more, it's like reliving some 20s that I didn't get to live, I guess.
Do
Yeah.
you guys share that apartment too?
We do. It's 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
So we have our own bedrooms there, but we share the apartment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
is there any like hope of reconciling and growing old
Um,
together side by side, or you?
I think so. Um, I think we have more of a chance doing this than we would if we tried to. I think if we give each other space for a while, there could be a chance that but like right now I'm kind of treating it at least as much as I can, like as like because I think at first when we separated, when we first decided to separate, it's like, look, let's just live separate, but let's still date each other.
Mhm.
And that's what I wanted. And so, we kind of decided to do that. We were on MDMA actually,
Mhm.
and that's when we decided to do it. And then we tried to date, but she wasn't feeling it at the time. I think the feminine intuition's a deal. I think she was sensing that we would have fallen back into old patterns real quick.
Mhm.
And I was like, no, 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 we can do this. But I think she was right in hindsight. Like,
Yeah.
Um, and so I mean, I still love her. I'm still very attracted to her and still, um, but it's also I've become more conscious of the unconscious of my unconscious that caused it to happen too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Start
not
seeing
at
that
first,
stuff.
there's a part of me, I was really, there was a time when I was really in a victim mode about it,
Mhm.
feeling like this is more on her end but it it's mutual. I'm finding it more like I've needed this separation. I've needed this space to explore myself,
Mhm.
and plus, like I don't know if we talked about on that episode that you listened to, but Doug and I have been leaning into music a lot lately, and it's turned out a few really good songs.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna play the guitar and sing and send you something because I like when I saw you guys at Miles and Jim's. I think you guys both had your guitars there,
Yeah, uh-huh.
and I was like so like I just wanted to play your guitar or his guitar and just play and just like jam with you guys or something like that.
Oh, we
But
should do that.
I know I just like I was too shy. I was too like, but I do want to say before we because I want to hear about the music too. But when I saw you at Jim and Miles, and I was projecting my own desire for like that person that's like your person.
Hmm.
I projected that onto you and Audra. I don't know why. Like I
Oh,
just looked at
uh-huh.
the two of you and I just thought, you guys are awesome. That is like
Yeah.
it. Like based on nothing, but just like my own like desire that I wish that I had that.
Yeah, but we had that. That's how it kind of felt. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's what I'm saying. It has that feeling. And the first time I did, when I did ayahuasca the first time, one of the images that came to me, it was right when Audrey and I were kind of opening up too.
Mhm.
And there was this image, and we were the butterflies, and we would fly away, and then we'd come back together and fly away, and look, I've done medicine enough in my exploration of the subconscious to know that like that's there's so much projection going on. That could be my own anima, or it could be us, our vibe together, that we might have periods where we go like this and come back together. I kind of get the sense that that's what our life path is going to be, kind of.
Mhm.
What that looks like when we reconnect, I don't know, but it feels like a deepening into like I don't know, maybe a love that's less um I don't know, less codependent maybe too.
Yeah.
And it kind of almost ties into the gene key thing we want to talk about
That's what,
because
so like seriously though, when I was listening, because I was listening to it on my drive home last night and with the agitation thing, and he gives the example of like maybe you marry someone.
Relationships also play out the agitation. Two wounded human beings come together and they fall in love. Let's say they get married. And once the honeymoon period's over, the chemistry of the underlying agitation comes to the surface. Because of its deep rootedness, it will always come to the surface. And now you have two states of agitation interacting. What it takes to ride this wave and stay together through the process. And if you haven't had some experience with meeting this state inside yourself first, then you don't really stand much of a chance when it arises, because you're just going to project it onto the other person. You're going to blame them, and they're going to blame you. And we know what kind of mess that causes. And it's all because we most often resort to harshness. We snap at each other, and then we blame ourselves, and we feel bad because we've been harsh. And then we propagate the harshness inside ourselves and in the relationship. I mean, most people never really stood a chance in the first place. Incarnation on this planet is quite a thing, and we're not taught these basics.
And I'm like,
yeah,
I wonder how this is going to hit Mike when he hears this. Like if
yeah.
if the agitations just really like start coming up. So yeah,
And so there's a part of me that's almost like I think we can almost leave this in here, if it ties into the gene key thing. I mean, I talk pretty openly about. I want to make sure I'm just telling my story and not hers.
okay.
And that's
Yeah.
but if it ends up tying into the episode, we'll feel it. But because I think people can relate to separation, and
Yeah.
when I read the gene key thing, I was like, holy shit, this is just really. It feels very aligned.
So did you read it? Did you listen to did you do both?
Oh, I did both. Yeah. So I
Okay.
read it first on that site, and then I listened to what you
Oh,
sent.
okay. Oh, you read what it said on the site.
Yeah, on
Okay,
the site.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so I went through there, and then that's when you sent me the audio,
Yeah.
and then so I listened to the audio, and yeah, it feels very very much aligned with like as far as
Dude.
like life path, and especially the agitation. It going back to my mission. I don't know. We can get
Yeah.
into it now, or yeah, but
Yeah. Yeah. So you're still working for Disney
yeah, I'm still working for Disney. Yeah,
and getting a PhD
yeah, I'm getting a PhD.
and
Yeah,
working as like a dream analysis like consultant thing.
yeah.
Dude,
There's a lot going on, and,
that's awesome. That is so cool.
yeah,
Cool. Excellent. Well, so should we start with an opening prayer?
yeah. I mean, that's how we always start things, right?
Yeah.
But who we want to pray to is the question.
Who would you pray? Who do you pray?
I do. I. So look what I got here. I've got. I don't know if you can see this, but I've got a little altar set up here. I do an altar practice. Ooh, I don't know if this is gonna. Can you kind of see my altar I've got going on there?
A little bit, yeah.
I don't know. I can bring out some things, but like this is look at this like like it's a Black Madonna statue I found at some like I don't know. I just find like little things that kind of mean things to me.
Yeah.
And I light some candles. I usually do some incense or something. And I don't know if I'm praying to anything in particular. I've worked with some entities before, but mostly it's like I open space and it feels like an ancestral connection.
Mm.
So sometimes it's with ancestors, but then sometimes it's like, but then it's changed the definition of what an ancestor is, you know. And your
Mm.
book was bringing this out, by the way, too. You were mentioning some stuff. It's like we're just the other day in one of the chapters I was listening to, it's like not only do we have our blood ancestors, but like our cells are made up of ancestral elements that maybe came, you know, there's our maybe ancestors from different dimensions. There's our ancestry of our lineage, right? Like not just Mormonism, but extending beyond Mormonism, past it, maybe to like, I mean, it's just there's so many ways you can look at ancestry, right?
Yeah.
And I've even had moments like where it's like I'm connecting with ancestors, but what I feel like I'm connecting with are beings who are now having their own experience on another plane of reality, but we're meeting up in this place outside of time. And you know, does that yeah,
Yeah.
makes
No,
sense. Yeah.
I conceptually understand how that could be. And there was a time where that just would have sounded like gobbledygook to me, but now I'm like,
Yeah.
oh no, I could see how that's possible.
Yeah.
I could see how that's possible. Yeah, I'm so glad that you're enjoying the book and you're finding those little nuanced things because it started for me where I was thinking about ancestors of like, there's this missing link or whatever of in evolution. What was before humans? We don't totally know what was before humans, but whatever it was, it's in our DNA. Like every single step, every single stage along the
Yeah.
way, we've got those memories. And I used to hear people say, we have cellular memory, and I just roll my eyes at it. And now I'm like, okay, but like our DNA really, and these are molecules, and these molecules must have learned how to be what they are before they were able to become what we are. And they dictate so much of and there's this epigenetic exchange between what's going on outside of us and what's going on inside of us. There's just so much interconnectedness that, yeah, I could see how there could be entities that we just can't even conceive of that are in different realms or planes or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I had this one experience where I was just feeling the energy of I had a cousin who's really close to me who took his own life
Mm.
about a year and a half ago. And it was probably the hardest, or no, it's been 2.5 years now. Two and a
Mm.
half years. So it was right before my separation. So it was kind of like that year I was dealing with his death and then the death of my marriage. So a lot of grief coming up. But for whatever it is, and just feeling his memory, his energy,
Hmm.
and I've stopped trying to figure out. I tried to just hold it in a space where it's not literal, but it's also doesn't mean it's not real either. Like I'm feeling it feels like in that moment, like if you close your eyes, and if you were here in the room with me, Glenn, like I would feel like you here.
Hmm.
It kind of just feels like that
Yeah.
sometimes, right? And I just don't know what to make of it. But it kind of was feeling him and was kind of grieving him a bit. And then it almost felt like, okay, he's now having this him that I'm connecting with is having his own experience. And in that experience, my consciousness died and we're connecting in this. And like I said, I don't know, but it was just like an emotional exchange, a beautiful thing. And it just was what it was.
So I don't want to give away what's coming in the book, but I think I'm going to a little bit. Do you know the orc ore theory, the Stuart Hameroff, Roger Penrose theory of
No,
consciousness? So it's this theory that every single neuron in your body, inside of it has these filaments called microtubules. And they're like lattice, they're like structure. And in fact, there was I forget what the name of the movie was, but it was one of those animated movies about superheroes. It was years ago. And the like bad guy had these like little black things that would like move and manipulate. Like he could like turn into anything he wanted. Anyway, I don't remember. It was like Big Hero, something like that.
Oh, wait, it would what it was a movie?
Yeah, it was a movie. It was animated, and like the kid had like a little robot that could heal things.
Oh, Big Hero 6.
Big Hero 6,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But in Big
Baymax.
Hero 6, there were like these what was it like those little black things that would like move around and they could like manipulate everything.
Oh yeah, uh-huh. And the villain at the end uses it
Right,
to yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, so that movie came out around the same time that I was learning about this orc-ore theory. So I pictured the microtubules as these little black things because inside of the neurons, they like move things around. They move structures and everything like that. And Stuart Hameroff is an anesthesiologist, and Roger Penrose is a Nobel Prize winning uh, astronomer, I think. He got a Nobel Prize for black holes. And he wrote a book called The Emperor's New Mind or something like that. I forget what it was, but Penrose hypothesized that there's no algorithm that could explain consciousness. It's just some kind of experience, and I don't understand everything that he talked about in that book. But Stuart Hameroff read it and he went, okay, he's onto something. And he contacted him and he said, what if the neuron, these microtubules inside the neuron could provide the substrate for this quantum boy, I am butchering this. Basically, the microtubules inside the neurons vibrate down to the quantum level
Okay, yeah.
and that it's connected that way. And like, do you know quantum field theory?
Yeah, uh-huh, yeah.
So quantum field theory, like that every electron in your body is part of one single electron field.
Huh.
And so, like, could there be communication at that level? Just like all of the cells in our body are communicating and exchanging stuff, and all of our molecules are exchanging stuff. You know, I mentioned the epigenetics with our DNA exchanging with the environment outside. Could that be something that goes all the way down to that quantum level thing? So, orc-ore theory hypothesizes that human consciousness arises from within each neuron. It's not from how the neurons are interacting with each other in neural pathways, but it's within each neuron that there's something going on that create conscious experiences, but it connects you there. So because I've been playing around with these ideas and I mention these later on in the book, they'll
Yeah.
come up. You'll come across a metaphor called the seven-layer burrito of existence, but you haven't
Oh my
quite
gosh.
gotten there yet.
By the way, let's just talk about your book for a minute, because your listeners will be familiar with it, but mine will probably be introduced to it for the first time.
Okay.
So could you just give a quick, because I'm loving listening to it, and I
Okay.
don't if you just quick introduction to it, and we
Okay.
can dive in from there.
The book is called You're Not Broken, Just Rewiring. And despite all the gobbledygook I just said, the point of the book, I wrote it for clients that I work with that they kept talking about how broken they are, broken they are. I'm like, you're not broken. You've had these experiences and you're adapting, you're changing, and these are like neural pathways. These are habits that you have, and you're creating new habits all the time. You're always rewiring your brain. And so something kind of clicked to me, and I'm like, oh, let's write this down. So the book is called You're Not Broken, Just Rewiring, and it's divided into three parts. And I think you're midway through part two right now.
I don't know if I got into part two. I mean, on chapter 10, whatever that
Yeah,
one is.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
part two is chapter 7 to 12.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then the first three of those, I bring up these things that I'm kind of ashamed to talk about, although I've been talking about on Infants on Thrones for a long
Yeah.
time. Just the interest that I have in channelers, which, by the way, one of the episodes that I did with you and Doug and Shalise early on, I think it was the first time I was on with you guys, she mentioned Wendy Kennedy and the ninth dimensional Pleiadians, and I'd
Yeah.
never heard that before. And I'm like, what? And I just love it. I just fell in love with it. But anyway, so I talk about the way that those ideas from channelers inspired me, but then I go into the science of it. Like these brought up these ideas, but then I kind of need science in order to really kind of ground it. And so that's what the second part is. And so if you're just now starting chapter 10,
Yeah.
then you're just now going to be getting into the to that. So I think the chapter that you read that inspired our conversation tonight was chapter 9, which was inspiration on the gene keys.
Right. Yeah.
And then chapter 10 is going to be the science of the gene keys. So it'll kind of continue from there. And then
No,
part
but
3 is just kind of more wild.
so this is let me gush about your book for a minute because this is why I'm loving it so much. One, even just the title right there, you're not broken, you're just rewiring. I think that's so important. And I left you a voice message about this for anyone, but especially ex-Mormons. I think I know I grew up with this sense that my feelings were a barometer for my relationship with God, or my, maybe it ties into a little bit with prosperity gospel, but it's also just like if I was feeling off, and this will tie into the gene key thing we want to talk about. If I was feeling agitated,
Right.
I am unworthy. I'm doing something wrong. I'm broken. Something's wrong. I need to fix it. I need to repent. I need to confess. It turned
Contention
into
is of the devil.
yeah, it turned into very much like a like scrupulosity kind of thing on my mission, where I just had this like OCD need to confess to fix the agitation inside of me because I'm like this agitate. I must not be worthy. And it's repeated a little bit. Before we started talking, we were talking about my separation from my wife, and there's this thing of like, oh, what am I doing? Sometimes I get nothing. What am I doing wrong? Or I'm in the throes of grief, and I'm like.
Yeah.
I thought I've healed this before. I thought I've fixed this. And I love your book starts out with this a metaphor of a dragonfly.
Yeah. Which
And
I got from Richard Rudd from the Gene Keys.
you got from him. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. But I just loved it. I love it's you starting with that. And I don't want to butcher it, but the dragonfly, it doesn't start out as a dragonfly, right? It starts out in a couple different phases. But I like how you were talking about, like, it doesn't even know there's a possibility of flight. It's following an impulse within it.
Yeah. It's
To
kind of like
emerge.
it's a nymph. It's like a little tadpole type thing, and it
Yeah.
lives in the mud, and it's mean. It's pretty nasty, but it's also it gets preyed on by others, but it's a water breather. And then something happens. Some kind of internal transformation where it climbs up a stalk, and for the first time in its life, it breathes air. It didn't know any of this. It's just following its internal programming to do it. And then it goes through this molting and transforming. And so using that as a metaphor for the times when our lives, quote unquote, fall apart, where it looks like they're falling apart, but we just don't see the molting. We don't see the wings growing. We don't really know that there's a transformation going on from I used to be underwater and now I'm in air. I'm a completely different thing than I was before.
What I love about that is, sometimes you go through these phases where all you can do is just go on instinct. You feel that impulse. There's something
Yeah.
emerging from within you, and you can't judge it by what you're seeing around you. You're still in the mud. You can't, and your mind's going to try to predict so many things, but all those it doesn't even know the possibility of flight yet. So how can it even
Yeah.
predict the future because it's so limited in what it can see. You're in the midst of darkness. You're just you're
Yeah.
crawling through. Um, and so it starts with there, but I just you do such a masterful job of blending psychology, neuroscience, and then introducing some of these more mystical, esoteric concepts in a way that feels
Yeah.
grounded. It doesn't feel like you're stretching into new forms of belief or dogma, but curiosity around and
Yeah.
wonder at the world around you. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Richard Tarnas's book, Cosmos and Psyche, but he talks about holding wonder and where he talks about astrology and wonder and skepticism together in like this tension. And I
Yeah.
think your book, so far that what I've listened to has just masterfully like woven all that together, and I just can't recommend it enough.
I appreciate that, Mike.
Because you're recording them on audio, and so we'll
Yeah.
include the links in both of our show notes, whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
But
Yeah.
because that's why, and it feels like each chapter it's a 10-15 minute like quick hit, and it's easy to adjust
They get
one or
longer.
two on in a commute to work. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they do get longer, but I wanted to lay the ground rules, or like because I introduced these ideas and then I use them more in part 2 and part 3. But I established in part one. But anyway, yeah. So thank you. I appreciate your interest in it.
Yeah. No, but I feel like it's been very synchronistic, like it's like aligned. And then the gene key part was so I'd heard about.
Yeah. So what happened? So you've been hearing people talk about the
So a
gene
couple,
keys?
I told you it was my third call to adventure, at least with it.
Hmm.
They came into my field, maybe a couple years ago, and it sounded interesting. It was like that little pull where I'm like, okay, maybe. And then earlier this year, maybe just a few months ago, a good friend sent me a podcast episode about it. She's like, you have to listen to this. But it was an Aubrey Marcus podcast, and I'm not. I have my
Yeah.
issue, and for these reasons, I feel like we're talking about holding these things kind of loosely and being curious because you can make anything a cult, you can make anything dogma,
Yeah.
and I like exploring these things with curiosity and wonder and openness, but also holding them in like it's almost like seeing the universe through one fractal, like, and then what if we shift the fractal this way, and what if we looked at it through this angle, and there's been so many
Yeah.
methodologies. In the past few years, astrology has been big for me. The I Ching
Yeah.
I've been getting into the last couple of years, which was kind of interesting. So when I pulled it up and saw the I Ching, the hexagrams in this
Yeah.
gene keys, I'm like, oh damn. And anyway, it's kind of interesting with Aubrey Marcus is that podcast, because I went back and listened to it finally, and
Was he, did he interview
he
Richard
interviewed
Rudd?
him, yeah, and he's a good
Okay.
interviewer.
Yeah.
I do think Aubrey Marcus holds good space and is a good interviewer. I just think he also is like so capital T truth, and is also doing a lot of culty things that give me very much Joseph
Hmm.
Smith vibes. And so there was like this avoidance to
Hmm.
listening to it. But then I listened to it yesterday because I was like, okay, I knew we would have this conversation. So I went back, and it's a pretty good episode. I think there could have been it could have been better, but it was enough to give me an
Hmm.
introduction to the gene keys.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
so I don't know if you,
Yeah.
yeah,
So then you reached out to me because you heard me talk about it in the book. You're like, I need it.
yeah.
And you went to the Gene Keys website, you got your profile, you shared that information with me, and I sent you one of Richard Rudd's contemplations because I've got all 64 of his contemplations, which he does in his own voice.
The 51st gene key. The transformational path of the 51st gene key moves from agitation to awakening, and it's the path of initiative.
You mentioned that when you went to the website and you got your profile, you read what it said
Yeah.
there. There's a whole chapter on it. Like so the book, The Gene Keys, each one of those 64 gene keys is its own chapter, and there's a lot more information. And you get some of that in these contemplations that you
Hmm.
heard that I sent to you. Um, but yeah, I came across the gene keys during COVID and just I kind of fell in love with it immediately.
Yeah, to me there was
Even before I heard his voice, but it's his voice really that draws me in.
yeah, I can see that too. He has and the approach he takes. I mean, in that interview with Aubrey Marcus, he kind of talks about, I mean, the channeling he did for those,
Hmm.
and like the kind of almost like mystical experiences he was having over, several days when it was like the information was coming through, um and it seems like I've really resonated with it. There's a lot of things
Yeah.
that the Enneagram is one that was like I couldn't I'm interested in it, but I couldn't. I don't know. There's different things that resonate with me. Astrology resonates with me. Ching, and this is just my path and what has resonated with me. But I can already tell in listening to this, it seems like a really approachable way to kind of explore yourself.
Yeah. Do you remember when we were at Jim and Miles and Cami gave Audrey an astrology
Yeah,
reading
yeah,
right there? Yeah, yeah. I remind her of that all the
yeah.
time. Like I love. So what's your what's your rising and
So I'm an
moon
Aries
and stuff?
sun, a Cancer
Uh-huh.
rising, and then
Okay.
Capricorn moon.
Okay. And I'm Aquarius sun, Aquarius rising, and a
Oh,
Cancer
so you have the
moon.
same sun and rising. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You do give off a lot of Aquarius vibes. Yeah.
I think so. I hope
And we
so.
had we had, we
I
bond on the Cancer softness. Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. for sure. So where do you want to go? So your life's purpose was Gene Key
Which
51, and it's the path from agitation to awakening through the gift of, what is it?
the initiation.
Initiation.
Initiation, yeah. Which very
Initiation.
much ties into the
Yeah.
Aries stuff, which yeah, so I was reading through it and listening to it. Very
So do you
fascinating.
understand like that shadow gift city
A
structure?
little bit, but maybe it'd be good to explain it.
That's it's one of the things I love about the Gene Keys. And like I'm also very interested in uh Enneagram. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. I'm interested in astrology. And kind of like what you were saying with Aubrey Marcus, I never want to get so interested in these things that they become my new dogma,
Yeah,
that I'm like really, really rigid about them. But I don't want to be closed off to them that I don't get value from them either.
right.
And so there was this skeptical part of me when I came across the Gene Keys because I wasn't sure where Richard Rudd was coming from with it. It took me a while to kind of get to know that he's much more humble than, like he goes, I'm presenting these to you as a symbol. You don't have to
Mhm.
believe them. You just have to reflect on them and see what your reflection tells you, which I love that approach. And so the the thing that I loved was that for each one of these 64 gene keys, the way that he presents them is they all have a shadow, a gift, and a city. And it mirrors that dragonfly uh, progression. So that the shadow is when the dragonfly is in the mud. And the shadow might be those parts of your personality that maybe you can't see, maybe other people can. Maybe similar to what Carl Jung says about the
Yeah.
shadow, but not completely that. But it's these darker, not darker, but lower parts of your nature, those survival instincts that you come up to, as a kid, when your world is chaotic and you have to find some balance somehow. So maybe you learn that if you tell the truth all the time, you get in
Mhm.
trouble. And so you lie for self-preservation. And you've done that ever since you were a kid. And it becomes so much a part of you that you don't even notice. And I'm talking about myself here. Like I had this experience with Cami a couple of years ago where she's like, "Did you eat that thing from the refrigerator?" Which I totally had. And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "I know you did." I'm no, no. And it was like this whole thing is like, "Why are you saying no? Why?" And I had to trace it back. I'm like, I just developed this really bad habit, this shadow of lying about things and even carrying it into adulthood without even like knowing it sometimes. It's just like secondhand
Yeah.
nature. So you've got these shadow things and it creates this habit, this way of behaving. But once you become aware of it, and then once you start making different choices with it, those the way that I like to think of it is these are all neural pathways. This is all part of our neural architecture, these habits that we have. And so I developed these neural pathways for lying and deceit and whatever, but I can somehow, and I haven't thought this through right now to say what the gift is of lying, but I'm able to turn that into something that, okay, oh, now I can be more honest. Now I can recognize, I can see those parts of myself because this created conflict and I didn't understand the conflict. And then I learned about the conflict. I became aware of it. Okay, now I can see it. Now in those moments, I can lean into telling the truth, and I can empathize with people that are still in their shadow. And so like the gift is it provides to me this insight and whatever it is. And then the city is when it grows even more. It's kind of like a seed, a sprout, and then a flower blooming. And that city is the way I think about it is when the habit becomes so second nature that I don't even have to think about it
Yeah.
anymore. It's just like part of who I am. And if it's this really beautiful thing that is making the world a better place for me, for people around me, then it just kind of ripples outward that way. So I really love the way that Richard Rudd approaches the gene keys. Every single one of these is you start off with this shadow.
Mhm.
In this case, it's the shadow of agitation. And then over time, it becomes a gift of initiative. And I love the way that he talks about it. He
Yeah.
uses this hourglass analogy, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And then it goes to this city of awakening. And he talks about what that means. So that's kind of the pathway for the 51st gene key. And that is your life
Yeah.
purpose,
So
Mike.
real quick, because there's different, because I pull up the map of my gene keys, right? And it looks very much
Yeah.
like the Kabbalah and the like and
Okay.
or like a human design too, has like a similar
He was very involved in human design before he started the Gene
interesting.
Keys.
I'm finding this more
Yeah.
accessible than human design already for
Yeah.
me. And I've
Yeah.
dabbled a little bit in human design, but it's been more dense. I haven't been able, but this already feels more approachable and understandable
Yeah.
and resonating right off
Yeah.
the bat for me. So you have
Yeah.
different the like life path. It looks like where your crown chakra would be, but then you look like you have other different gene keys for different parts, right? And one might show more of
Yeah.
like your wounding, correct? Or like, is that correct? Different, yeah.
He has a depth that I haven't totally gone
Mhm.
down into, but he's got like the golden path and the pearl sequence and just like these other things. Like when you're looking at that profile and you see the four that are like on the outside, like if you're looking at a north, south, east, west kind of compass, and then inside you've got all these different keys as well that I don't totally
Yeah.
know how they all fit together. My sense is that it's all kind of a MacGuffin, that it's all a little bit of just like I want to put some information out there that's interesting that you'll dig and you'll try to solve these
Yeah.
mysteries. And as you're doing it, you're really learning about
Yeah.
yourself. That's what I think the Gene Keys
Yeah, it
is.
reminds me a lot with astrology because you have like, we talked about our
Yeah,
sun, moon, rising, but then you can also dive deep into your Venus and the placements and
yeah,
the different way the planets were aligned, the alignments that were happening, during your, there's so many different ways you can dive into the nuances, but it seems like the life path one is a pretty key one. And it,
yeah,
resonated for me right off the bat. And it really was bringing up a lot for me in like my therapeutic work in the last few years. So, that agitation is something, as I was talking about before, that I think was one of the feelings I was feeling most prominently when I was on my mission.
Agitation is the shadow, and agitation is something that's ever present. And until you begin to look within, you never really realize the depth of your own agitation. It's like when people first begin to try and meditate, and what a shock that is to the system. It's not like when you close your eyes and you relax that you suddenly find it easy and peaceful and calm inside. Suddenly you realize the terrible truth about how screwed up you are, how crazed your mind is, leaping from one thing to the next and never giving you a break. It's like a wall of frequency that towers over you like a wave. And you can sit with it and sit with it and sit with it. It's a tangled web in there. And it takes some courage to plumb the depths of your own discomfort.
Growing up, I was a swimmer, and I think without knowing it, I think it helped me discharge a lot of my agitation, just intense workout, just working out intensely. But then when I stopped swimming and went on my mission, I associated it with being unworthy. I associated it with being anxious, depressed, unworthy, and that was something to fix in me.
how would it come up for you? Would you like get agitated? You'd get annoyed at your companions, at people that would shut the door on you? Like
It felt
how did
like
you experience
it
agitation?
felt the feeling to me feels like so even the word agitation, here's my experience of it. It feels like simultaneously being it feels like an itch that I just can't scratch. It's just like a gnawing. That's how I would I
Mm.
would describe it, like a gnawing feeling. It like the my root.
Yeah, where I mean, is it a gnawing? Can you locate it in your body? Is it in your head?
Yeah, it feels like if you look at the shot, like kind of like maybe below my belly, but in almost like
Yeah.
towards my spine, and it's just like a
Okay.
crawling like ants, but like a gnawing kind of sensation. And for whatever reason, I associated that with unworthiness.
So you would have this feeling of
Hmm.
uneasiness, agitation, just kind of this discomfort in your lower
Yeah.
extremities. You didn't have any stories of like what it was, or you didn't project it onto others as if, you caused this.
He,
You just
so he
felt it.
said one of the shadow things that happens with that is harshness.
And one of the keys here is the dilemma of this shadow, which is harshness. You see, when you meet discomfort, this tends to be our immediate pattern. We meet it with harshness. And at the shadow level, we do one of two things. We turn and run, or in other words, we distract ourselves and we dive back into our denial in some way and repress the pattern, or we try and fix the pattern, correct it. We tense up and we start trying to resolve it. Maybe we go to therapy, maybe we try yoga, maybe we meditate even harder. It's a natural human tendency. We want to be free of something, so we try and shrug it off. It's like that lovely fable by Aesop about the competition between the north wind and the sun. And they decide to see who is the stronger by getting a man to take off his coat. And the north wind blows and blows, but the man just pulls the coat tighter and tighter around himself. And then the sun says, okay, now it's my turn. And it comes out from behind a cloud, and the man gets hot, and he just takes off his coat. And we're like this, except we take the harsh approach. But this gene key will teach us how to turn these shadows to our advantage instead of becoming their victim.
And I think the harshness was reflected back at me. I think I became so overly critical of myself. Like it was like a self-criticism. I don't know if I was harsh too much outwardly as much. Like I didn't, like I suppressed my anger very well. Like I didn't lash out a lot, but it was like a depression. Anger turns inward, kind of turns into a depression.
Yeah.
So for me, it was this, I mean, the mission was like a pressure cooker for it because it was this feeling of being depressed where all my energy was being sucked in. And so it was hard for me to get up, hard for me to face like the intense Brazilian sun every day. And yet I couldn't because of the gnawing feeling, it wasn't just depression. It was like I needed to, I couldn't just, I wasn't, never felt content just laying down or like relaxing or resting. That almost made it worse. Felt better to get up and go, but I didn't want to move either. And so that was my whole mission. And
So you felt like perpetually unworthy because
yeah,
you had this sensation in you.
to the point where my mission president he was just getting sick of me because I would come in and I would confess every little thing. I would go back through my history and be like, well, what about this? Well, this, and then I'd feel good. Sometimes that would relieve it a little bit, like just having someone tell me you're okay. But
Yeah.
then I'd be like, but did I confess that fully? And then I would go, and then next time we were in interviews, I would like, okay, that thing I talked about last time, this, and he had no training for mental health. Like he
Right.
didn't know what was going on with me. And then he would also shame it. Like, a lot of it
Yeah.
for me was, the image was around masturbation. It was like, which I, had stopped masturbating like a year before my mission, but then would find that I was always been a sleepwalker, sometimes masturbate in like a sleep-like, dream-like state to where I
Sure.
didn't know
Yeah, yeah. Sure you were asleep, Mike.
exactly. Well,
That's a likely
that's the whole thing.
story.
That's what I would tell
Yeah.
myself. Like, how much
Yeah.
did I have control
I
over this? How
was
much did I
asleep.
not? How
Right.
much was I awake? How much was I not? Could I have stopped it? Could I have not? It was like this
Yeah.
like thing,
Yeah.
right? And then of course, he would dig in and he'd be like, yeah, he was like, Mike, like, so when did you start masturbating? I'm like, oh, maybe fifth grade. He's like, oh, wow, you got off to an early start. And I was like, well, okay. Well, now I feel even more guilty and like more. Um, but where this really resonated with me is because even in my therapy work, I mean, so that was when I first encountered, but and I feel like the mission was like a pressure cooker for it, and a pressure cooker for my nervous system. Like
Yeah.
I was very seldom in like a parasympathetic, relaxed nervous system state. It was like a hyper aware state, a wind up toy, my whole mission.
Yeah.
And I feel like since then it's been trying to unwind it. um, but there's been a lot of points in my work with my therapist where at one point she's like, Mike, you've gotten really good at feeling the feeling and sitting with it and this, but it wants to be expressed. It wants to be moved. It wants to be, you're
Mm.
still trying to fix the wounding, but it's not wounding.
Hmm.
It's you're associating this feeling with wounding. And even in
Yeah.
my work with astrology, I was born with a Sun Pluto opposition, and they're both square. It's called a T square. They're squared my moon, and it creates like a really intense. And Pluto is instinct and passion and aggression mostly. Like fire, and just intention with my Sun when they're opposites. It's like this. That feels like Pluto is the underworld. That feels like dark to me, where the
Hmm.
light, I'm keep going for the Sun, but I feel this opposition. So anyway, different methods of like exploring yourself, right? But that's where I
But
resonate with
another
me.
way to understand that tension that you've always felt.
Yeah, and the more I've
Yeah.
realized, like, oh, this is not something to be fixed, and it's not
Mm.
something to be. It doesn't mean it's anything wrong with me. Doesn't mean I don't need to fix it. I don't even need to like let go of it. I just need it's to be worked with.
You see, there are two ways through this dilemma as well. You either wait it out, in other words, you just sit and you watch the pattern, like in Vipassana meditation. You outwait the pattern. You just observe it, and you observe yourself observing it. You watch your mind struggling and struggling until eventually your mind spontaneously gives up. And then the sun comes out and you're through. The Buddha taught that approach. But there's another approach. And it's the core of this process with the 51st gene key, and that's to use creativity. You use the energy and you direct it outwardly in a creative direction.
Yeah. Do you know David Hawkins, the book Letting Go?
Letting go. Yeah, yeah, love it. I was actually re-listening to it just a month ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that book. It helped me understand emotions better, and it helped me understand letting go better because when I first heard the concept of letting go, I thought, oh, okay, I've got this uncomfortable feeling inside of me. Let's just make that go away.
Yeah.
Let go of that uncomfortable feeling. And no, I was misunderstanding it. The way that Hawkins presents it, at least, is that you let go of the resistance that's keeping it down. You let go of that sense that it's bad or it's wrong or that it needs to be fixed, and you like allow it. You understand, okay, there's a reason that I'm feeling this feeling, and I'm going to let myself feel it. And I love what your therapist said to you. It's not just about feeling the feelings and continuing to think there's something wrong with me for feeling these feelings. Like do something and express something with that feeling. And that's what he talks about as the initiation,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The gift
It's the gift, is the initiation of doing something with it. Um,
creatively.
and for me, a lot of that's been, we were talking about music before. A lot,
Mm.
sometimes when I'm feeling agitation, one of my favorite things to do is to plot. I got this little djembe drum, bang on the drum, get some of it out, but then just like sing from that place, right? And see if any
Yeah.
words want to be expressed. See if any
Yeah.
chants. Sometimes it starts out and it feels almost like primitive or primal. It's like very like chanty, like like growling and this. But then sometimes
Yeah.
like a melody will come forth or come out, or words will come out, or something, channeling it, working with it, seeing it as a gift, as like a life force that wants to move through me. If I take the initiation, if I move with it,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And I liked when he talked about that part. He talked about the gift, or he talked about the shadow being like the top part of an hourglass, and the gift being that narrow neck, and then the city being the other big part of the hourglass.
Sometimes to really understand a gene key, you have to first of all look at its siddhi, from agitation to awakening in this case. And how do we make that huge transition? Agitation to awakening, they seem an awfully long way away from each other, right? I kind of like to see awakening as like an hourglass. At one end, you have the shadow, at the other end, the city, and in the middle, you have the narrow neck of the gift. And from the shadow, you kind of appear locked into the glass, trapped by the endless cycles of your agitation. But when you look at everything from the other end, from the city, then time itself dissolves. You experience the boundless. So there's no end to that end of the hourglass. It isn't really an end at all. And what's interesting is that the two places where the path to awakening is the same for everyone are the shadow and the city. It's only unique in the middle, at the gift. And I'm obviously speaking metaphorically here. I'm trying to give you an image for your mind to play with. So when we experience the shadow of agitation, no matter who you are, it's the same. It's uncomfortable. It's persistent. It's human suffering. It's universal. We are all born into it. And then from the other end, from awakening, it's also the same. It's freedom. When one person experiences that freedom, it's the exact same freedom as another person's. No matter how they got there, no matter what expression it takes, no matter what city it's refracted through, or what language or no language they choose to frame the awakening with, it's the same experience. It's identical. So isn't that a beautiful symmetry? The shadow and the city are the same for us all. What about the gift then? Well, the gift is the path. It's the neck of the hourglass, and it's a narrow path. It's your path through your suffering. And one thing you can say about it, it's utterly unique. It's your path. It's virgin. It's untrodden. It heads out into the wilderness of the inner planes. So guides can sometimes be a distraction. It's tricky to walk your own path because there are so many unconscious influences. That's why this gift is called the gift of initiative. Every gift has this same urge to break new ground. Every gift is inherently creative and original. So how can you follow another?
And that when you're moving from shadow to gift, he talked about two different ways of doing it. Basically, one is passive and one is active. And the passive way is just like observing and observing yourself observing and just allow it to pass through you. And you're just inert. You're just watching it. But he said that with this particular gene key, when you take action and you initiate, and that's why it's initiation, you're creating something from that shadow, and it's unique for every single person. And that's why he made it narrow, that like no two people have the exact same way that they express the gift of agitation, because you feel your agitation in your way and you express it in your way, and it's going to be like unique, like a fingerprint. And I loved that. I loved that. And I'm sure that's what you do.
And so it's helping me get more just clarity around that, right? And more confirmation. So it was kind of interesting to read that and be like, oh my gosh, this just resonates with what I've been going through with my therapeutic process. And also kind of tying into the I Ching, it's kind of interesting because you read hexagram 51, the hexagrams are formed by 2 trigrams each, and 51 is thunder over thunder. It's the shock. It's so you kind of get an image of that, the feeling of like being kind of almost embodying the shock, the thunder.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about quantum fields earlier. Quantum fields have something that's called excitations, which I don't totally understand what that is, but I think about it in the same realm of agitation. That there's like some kind of an excitation or an agitation, and from that quantum field comes a subatomic particle. Like the result of the agitations is a subatomic particle, and then the forces of physics, the strong and the weak nuclear force, take these subatomic particles and bind them together into atoms. So even there, you've got agitation, and I love that symbol of thunder and thunder. Like whether you're feeling that low inside of you, and how are you going to react? How are you going to respond to it? And like every interaction that you have with anybody is some kind of agitation in that way. And then how do you express it? How do you work with it? And when you see that the shadows aren't this bad, evil thing that you need to avoid, but the shadow itself is the seed that contains that gift in it, and that gift grows out of it like the seed. It just changes the way that you view yourself, where you're like, okay, yeah, I'm not broken for having this feeling. Like as lost as you were as a missionary and seeking relief through confession to your mission president and other things, this was a way that you were taking action. You were like doing what you knew how to do, what you thought, okay, I think that this feeling in here means that I'm unworthy. And so I think that I need to do this thing to make me worthy. And you're trying and it's not totally working. It kind of works, but then it doesn't work. And you keep trying, you keep
Yeah.
pushing against it until you start doing
Yeah.
Mormons on mushrooms and you start singing and you start like, okay, oh, I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to feel it. And it becomes a gift not only for you, but for all your listeners, everybody that you interact with. It's really beautiful stuff, Mike.
Oh, thank you. Well, and that's where it gave me clarity too, because when I'm reading it, so when in the, and I think in the audio it talks about it too, but when I was reading the description, it talks about that. So it's in the life path thing, but my life path is supposed to be one where it's like there's no there's no model. I can't follow anyone. I'm meant to initiate. I'm meant to just lead from me
Mm,
and not seek uh like models to follow. And it's been so interesting because even leaving the church, like I'd researched for so many years. I'd kind of gone through each of the individual anyway, my shelf finally broke, but I'm like, I'm still gonna be Mormon. I don't know how to not be
mm,
Mormon. Plus, I didn't at the time know many good examples of people who left, and people who I knew who had left fit like the cult structure of like the narrative of, oh, if you leave, your life's gonna go to shit. That's kind of the models I'd seen.
mhm,
But then I'm a friend of a friend. He went to high school, but he was a few years ahead of me, so we have a lot of mutual friends. But someone connected me with him. I'm like, oh, this is a model of a guy who, oh, it looks like he's left the church and is happy. And so I had a phone conversation with him, and that conversation was enough to give me the courage to leave. But it's kind of funny. So after we'd had that conversation, then I think he got divorced. I think now he's been remarried. I think he's now back in the church. So it's kind of like he's
mm,
following his own path. Um,
mhm.
I've always kind of looked outside for models. Um, and this is just giving me more courage, like, no, it's within me, even when we're talking about like music,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, Doug and I are working on this album this year. I don't know what's going to come of it, and it's not like but sometimes I look for models of like, I don't know, musicians who start at 45 and release albums. So I don't know if that's like something, and I don't even know if that's what it turns into, but it's something in me where it's like I've got songs to express and I want to express them, and I don't care.
Yeah, but you're basing that off of an old Piscean age. We're
We
in the
are,
age of
right? Yeah,
Aquarius now, man.
exactly.
Yeah. We've got a new blank slate in front of us to write on. And I love that you mentioned when you were leaving the church, you had heard that, people who leave the
Mhm.
church, their life just goes to shit. So you have
Yeah.
these expectations, and then confirmation bias comes in, and you're looking around and you're going, oh yeah, that person left the church, did shit. Okay, confirmed. This person good, confirmed. And it scared you about leaving the church. You're like, oh, is my life going to turn to shit? And I'll bet if that Mike Steed then looked at your life now, it might have judged it as turned to shit. Like you might have looked at it through those eyes
Yes.
back then that you
Oh,
had
exactly. Yeah.
and been like, okay, yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did turn to shit. But when you had the conversation with that guy and he gave you a different perspective, something in you softened and something allowed you to update the model that your brain creates to expect reality in. So it was no longer just created by those stories of people that leave the church, their life turns to shit. You're like, oh, well, here's this person that kind of goes against that. Oh, maybe
Yeah.
that can be something different. And your mind opens a little bit. And I bet if you really went through and you looked at all the different steps and choices that you've made since then, you'll see you're exposing yourself to this. Oh, I'm learning something new. My mind's opening up a little bit more. There's more possibilities than
Yeah.
I thought before because we were when being raised Mormon. There's so many messages that are reinforced over and over and over again, and we form these neural pathways. I mean, one of the reasons I got into mental health in the first place was because I came across the concept of cognitive distortions. catastrophizing, black or white thinking, discounting the positive, like all these things that you do without even thinking about it, that are just baked into the culture of the church, not just the Mormon church. They're all over, but they're really, really strong in the church. And so I had to recognize I've got these limitations in my expectations. Can I give myself a update on what I expect to see in the world? Anyway, I went on
No,
a big
it's,
rant
I
about
mean,
that, and I'm done. I've
well,
ran out of gas.
I have
I've
a
ran
couple
out of
things to
gas
say
with
here
that
with
one.
that because you mentioned softening, and that's what
All right.
he recommended in that, for harshness to a
Yeah.
softening.
Yeah.
And I mean, even and I wasn't just leaving the church. I mean, with I- I've been grappling a lot with um, it, even when I was Mormon, so like I got home from my mission. I was never the one like I never really wanted to get married. But I thought that's just the path we
Mm.
take. But I think there's a part of me like looking for
Yeah.
models and seeing relationships around me and seeing that like, but no one really looks happy in their relationships. But I'm like, I guess that's what we do. And so we get, married and then, but I always felt like maybe there's a different model for it. I don't know. And then so before we separated, we explored open relationships for a little bit. But I remember like even then I was looking for a model, like who's doing this right? Who's happy in an open relationship? And
Mm.
at that time,
And what are they doing right that I
exactly.
can
And at
model
one point I
myself
had a
after?
dream actually that I
Yeah.
worked with my dream coach, where I was visiting a friend who is also he practices a form of polyamory. I was at his house and he was mixing me a drink, but I was like, "Oh, I don't want rum or vodka. I want to put tequila in it." And my thought was that like, oh, I can make my own recipe. I don't have to follow his recipe. And tequila to
Mm.
me is a fun, there's a
Mm.
lightness to it. There's like I don't have to take it so seriously and I can make my own recipe and I can play as I go. And I think, in reading this Gene Key, it just gives me more and even now that I'm separated, there's a part of me that's like I love a lot of things about monogamy and I liked a lot of things about being open, but I hated some elements of both. And so I'm kind of in this thing
Mm.
where I'm trying to date, but I'm like, I don't know if I believe in marriage. I don't know if I believe in monogamy, but I also don't love I don't know. I'm caught in two kind of worlds with it. And there's part of me that's like, maybe I don't need to figure it out.
Aquarian
Maybe I
age,
don't.
Mike.
Exactly.
Aquarian age,
Don't need
blank
to figure it
slate.
out. There's a dragonfly in me that knows how to like just smell it out and navigate
Yeah.
it and trust it.
Yeah. I love it.
Good shit, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to.
So I'd like to just take a pause from this whole idea for a moment and introduce another idea into the mix. Because the 51st Gene Key is very powerful, and it's represented in the I Ching by sudden flashes of thunder and lightning. So it can be both disturbing, and yet it can also bring huge possibilities with it. And the idea I want to put to you is that the agitation is not only inside, it's also outside. It comes from the frequencies, the cosmic and celestial frequency field. You see, our solar system moves through space. It's on the move. And as it does so, it's moving through fields of cosmic energies and frequencies. It actually describes a vast spiral arc through the galaxy. Everything is spiraling. And every now and again, just like everything in life, the solar system moves out of one field of energy and into another field. The stars do this. The sun does this. Everything is doing this. And this is what the I Ching and astrology is all about. The ebb and flow of these celestial patterns. Well, our planet is moving right now into a new field, and we call this the precession of the equinoxes, or the age of Aquarius. The whole solar system is caught up in this change. And new energies are available right now. New currents are coming online that can take us out of agitation. So I'd like you to know that there's great hope coming to our species. And I don't say this to make you dream of a new world or to take your awareness away from the discomfort, but as a counter force. Behind the agitation lies a huge energy of great potential and light. It's kind of as though our entire solar system has been moving through a long period of galactic eclipse And as we move out of the eclipse, so for the first time in thousands of years, the light from the galactic core comes back into view. And the light from that core is already starting to stream back into our consciousness. And it's driving a new inner revolution. And you can see this as a metaphor, but it's also true. It's what's happening externally and internally right now.
Infants on throne.